Good morning and welcome to our next maths lesson. Okay, today we're going to be looking at representing fractions as decimals once again, just like we did yesterday. We're just going to do a bit more practice on that to make sure it's fully embedded. So please will you just pause the video now and write down your short date and learning objective into your maths book, please. Okay, pause the video now to do that. Okay, so you should have had enough time to write down the date and LO by this point. So let's make a start with a review, as we always do. So we have a question here. We have a girl, a scientist called Sophia, and it says, Sophia pours 1/10 of a litre of liquid from the flask into beaker A. She then pours 3/4 of a litre into beaker B. If Sophia reads the scale of each beaker, what will the measurement say? And I've put a little think here. Think, the flasks are represented, the scale of the flasks are represented in decimals. The information in the question gives us fractions. So if we want to know what the amount on the beaker will show, we are going to have to do what? We are going to have to convert our fractions, 1 and fraction 2, into decimals. And that will tell us what each beaker will say. So can you have a go now at pausing this video and converting 1/10 and 3/4 into decimals, please? So pause the video now to do that. Okay, so let's have a look at how we should have worked out that answer. So if we look down here, we should have known straight away that 1/10 is equal to 0.1 as a conversion, because this one here is a learn by heart fact, which we have been learning in year 5 and year 6, and we have looked at already over the past few lessons. On the next one, for 3/4, we should have known that 1/4 is equal to 0.25. So to get to 3/4, we would have to times 1/4 by 3, which means then we have to times 0.25 by 3 to get to 0.75. So they should have been your answers, okay? 0.1 litres and 0.75 litres. Let's continue through today's lesson then. Remember, it is a recap over yesterday. It's to fully embed the different techniques that we can have to convert a fraction to a decimal, okay? So the first one here, we're looking at 2/5, and how can we represent 2/5, or how can we convert 2/5 into a decimal? I remember what we said yesterday. We said we look at our learn by heart fact column and we try to find a fraction that we can link to the fraction in the question, and we always link through the denominator. So can we see a fraction in this column here that has the same denominator as 2/5? And we should all have been able to see 1/5 in this column. Now, because we should know our learn by heart facts off by heart, we should know them automatically, we know that 1/5 is equal to 0.2. So if we know 1/5 is equal to 0.2, how can we use this fact to help us work out what 2/5 would be? Well, to get from 1/5 to 2/5, we multiply by 2. So to get our decimal, we also have to multiply by 2. And if we multiply 0.2 by 2, we get to 0.4, which tells us that 2/5 then is equal to 0.4. And then finally, we write our answer in the correct place. The second question here, we are now looking for 3/8. So we are looking for another fraction in our column here. Remember, these are things we should know off by heart, but if you don't, I've put the columns up here to help you. We are looking for another fraction that we can link to 3/8. And remember, we link by looking for the same denominator. They have a common denominator. And here again, you should be able to see that 1/8 has the same denominator as 3/8. We know off by heart, or we can use the table to see this, that 1/8 is equal to, or is the same as, 0.125. If I then want to get to 3/8, which is what our question asks, how would I get from 1/8 to 3/8? And we should all be able to see that to get from 1/8 to 3/8, we times by 3. Because we've got to times 1/8 by 3 to get to 3/8, we now have to times the equivalent decimal by 3 to get to 3/8. 0.125 multiplied by 3 would give us 0.375 as our answer. So that is how we can use our learn by heart facts to really help us go from a fraction to the equivalent decimal. So what I would want you to do now, please, is to have a go at number 3 and number 4. So remember, the first thing that you should always do is write down the fact, the learn by heart fact that you know, which can then help you with the conversion. So for example, if we start number 3 together, I'm looking for a fraction that can be linked to 2/3. So I'm looking for a fraction with the same denominator as 2/3, which I can see here as 1/3. And I know from looking at my table that 1/3 is equal to 0.33. So what you now need to think about is how can we go from our 1/3 and the decimal equivalent of 1/3, which is 0.33, to 2/3. So I want you to have a go at number 3 and number 4 and pause the video now to give yourselves a chance to do that, please. Okay, so you should have had a go there, and let's have a look at what our answers should have been. So as we just said, 1/3 is equal to 0.33. To get to 2/3, we multiply 1/3 by 2, and therefore we need to multiply our decimal equivalent by 2. So 0.33 times 2 would give us 0.66, which is our answer. Again, if we look at 9/10 now, we find the fraction that is linked to 9/10, and we can see 1/10 is linked to 9/10. We know from our learn by heart facts, or from this table, that 1/10 is equal to 0.1. To get from 1/10 to 9/10, we multiply by 9, and 0.1 times by 9 is 0.9. So if you mark your work now, please, if you've done something wrong, try to correct it. Let's carry on having a look through. So what about if we don't see a link to our learn by heart facts? What if we can't see that? What would we do if our questions look something like this? Well, the first thing that we need to remember is that the line means divide, and we looked at that yesterday. But the second thing we need to be able to do right now is to be able to simplify fractions. And we talked about the 4 questions that we ask ourselves in order to simplify. And we talked about this last week. The first question, can both the numerator and denominator go into the 10 times table? The second question, can they go into the 5 times table? The third question, can they go into the 2 times table? And the last question, can they go into any other times table? And these questions shouldn't be new to you because we've done these a lot in year 5. We've also gone through these questions a lot already in year 6. So let's have a look at the first one here. The first thing I would do if I'm trying to find the decimal equivalent to 20/40ths is I would simplify our fraction. So I'm going to start with our fraction, 20/40ths, and I think, right, the first thing I always ask myself is, do they both, the numerator and the denominator, go into the 10 times table? Now I can see straight away that both 20 and 40 do go into the 10 times table because we know they're both multiples of 10. How do we know they're both multiples of 10? Because they both end with a 0. So now I can divide the top by 10 and the bottom by 10, because we remember our saying, whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. 20 divided by 10 is 2, and 40 divided by 10 is 4. Now, I ask myself the questions again. Do both the numerator and denominator go into the 10 times table? And this time I know my answer is no, because they are not both multiples of 10 now, because they do not end with 0. My second question is do they both go into the 5 times table? And again, I know straight away here that they are not both in the 5 times table because all multiples of 5 either end with a 5 or a 0. And we can see that our first number, our numerator, ends with a 2 here. And our denominator ends with a 4, so neither go into the 5 times table. Number 3, I ask, can they go into the 2 times table? And I know straight away here that they do both go into the 2 times table because they are both even numbers. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now, whenever you get down to a fraction that either has 1 as its numerator or as its denominator, you can never simplify them anymore. The reason being, and we should know this, is because you cannot have a decimal as part of a fraction. So now I've done my first bit. I have simplified my fraction to 1/2. And now I'm going to convert it into a decimal. So the first way I can do that is because we know 1/2 is 0.5 as part of our learn by heart fact. So if you know that, you could do that straight away. And straight away then you know that 20/40 is the same as 0.5, because if we go down our list, we know 20/40 is exactly the same as 1/2 because we simplified it here. We then know that 1/2 is exactly the same as 0.5 because that is one of our learn by heart facts which we need to know. However, if you didn't know, if you couldn't remember that 1/2 was equal to 0.5, we could always remember that the line means divide. So 1/2 is the same as 1 divided by 2. Again, here we would use our bus stop method. We need to remember the saying inside out, because remember these can be quite tricky because usually we put the larger number on the outside. Now we are saying how many 2's fit into 1? Well, 0 can because 2 is bigger than 1. Again, we've got no more digits here, so I put my decimal point and 3 zeros, and I carry my 1 across, remembering to put my decimal point in my answer here so I don't forget it. Now I have 10 divided by 2, which would give me 5. So I can see that 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, so therefore 1/2 is the same as 0.5. Now if we compare our two answers, we get the same answer. So either method that you choose will be correct. It's just if we know our learn by hearts, we can do it a lot quicker. So I want you to have a go at these ones, please. Remember, first of all, you simplify the fraction, and then you convert to a decimal. And you can either do that using your learn by heart facts that you know, or using the saying that the line means divide. Either one will get you the right answer. We will make a start, because I can see here that this is already done. We've done 0.5, and we'll simplify number 2 together. Do they both go into the 10 times table? Well, no, they don't, because although 50 ends with a 0, 35 doesn't. Do they both go into the 5 times table? And I can see actually this time, yes, they do, because they both numbers, the numerator and denominator, end with either a 5 or a 0, and therefore are multiples of 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. 50 divided by 5 is 10. And now I can do that remembering that the line means divide, or I can use my learn by heart fact. I will leave that for you to do. Remember, if it didn't go into the 5 times table, we'd then go to the 2 times table, and then we would go to any other times table. So what I would like you to have a go at now, remembering that I have written these 4 questions on the board when it comes to simplifying, and remember that the line means divide to help you, can you have a go at converting number 2, 3, 4 and 5 into decimal places? So please pause the video here to give yourself a chance to work out the different answers. Okay, so we should have finished those questions by now. So let's have a look at the answers that we get. So 35/50, as we said before, simplified to 7/10. So we should have done 7 divided by 10, which gives us 0.7. Or we remember that 1/10 is equal to 0.1. And to get from 1/10 to 7/10, we times by 7. So we have to times 0.1 by 7 to get to 0.7. 19/20 cannot be simplified any further than that. So we would have had 19/20ths, which is the same as 19 divided by 20. Now, if you used what we did last week, and we partitioned the number 20 because it is a multiple of 10, we could have rewritten that as 19 divided by 10 divided by 2 to make the question a lot easier. And if you'd have done that, you'd have got 0.85. 15/18ths, both numbers go into the 3 times table, so we should have got 5/6. And then we could have done 5 divided by 6, and we should have got 0.833333, and it will keep going. Number 5, both are in the 10 times table, so we should have simplified to 24/36. That is a 3. Then we can see they're both in the 2 times table, 12/18ths. We can see they are still both in the 2 times table, 6/9ths. We can now see they are both in the 3 times table, and we should have got down to 2/3. Now at this point, we could have used our fact, 1/3 equals 0.33, and we could have then times by 2 to get to our 2/3, or we could have done 2 divided by 3 to get to our answer. But always remember, simplify first and then convert to a decimal. So the next set of questions which you need to complete in your maths books are on the board now. So the first activity is this one here, and then you go on to these 4 questions here. Remember, simplify where you can, then convert to a decimal. If you can use your learn by heart facts to help you with this, then use them. If you can't, remember the line means divide. Okay? So I want you to pause the video here until you have completed these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. So pause the video and complete these questions. Off you go. Okay. So you should have finished those questions by now, and I would like you to take a picture of the work that you've completed in your maths book, and I want you to send it to me, please. And I will be marking these questions when you send me a photo of them over Class Dojo. Remember, there is another worksheet on Class Dojo for you to complete, which you need to log on to Class Dojo to download and then complete it on there and then submit it through to me, Miss Beck or Miss Chapman. Remember, if you are struggling, please come on to Microsoft Teams at 10:30 until 11. It's a half an hour slot, but it'll be really useful to you if you are struggling, okay? Don't sit there at home knowing you have struggled and not log on at 10:30. Use the session to help you. If you've completed it confidently, you've submitted it, and you're happy with what you've done and you've got good feedback from me, then, or Miss Beck or Miss Chapman, then you do not need to log on to that session. Thank you for continuing to work at home. Thank you for continuing to learn at home. And I will see you tomorrow with some more maths.